Join me packing the dance floor. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Howdy, everybody. This is Jared Sterrett, and you're listening to KZCC LP 106.1 Conroe and KZCW LP 104.5 in Conroe and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Schissler. I'm your host. I'm a Silver Fox advisor as well as the founder of OneBestConsult.com. Glad you had the time to listen to the program this morning. Also want to give a big shout out to all the fathers and grandfathers out there. Yesterday was Father's Day. I hope you had a chance to enjoy your family. I know I did. It's nice to kind of kick back and enjoy things, watch everyone else do whatever they do, and lots of smiles to go around. Today we're broadcasting live from the studios of Lone Star Community Radio, which is located in downtown Conroe, Texas, which is one of the fastest growing cities in America. It's a place to be. It's a place to do business. It's one of the reasons I love to come downtown into Conroe and the entire county, Montgomery County, Texas. Lots and lots of business going on. First question of the day for you. How will your business fare this summer? We're in the beginning of summer, if you don't believe it. If you're in the Texas area, just go outside about 2 or 3 o'clock. Temperatures are already soared into the triple digits. But the question is, and this happens every year to every business. Now, I'm assuming your business is not seasonal. If it's seasonal and summer is a big time for business, or perhaps some people I've worked with, their business basically dwindles off to nothing, and they plan for that. But look what wind is blowing in our face this day. We got the inflation. The wind of inflation is blowing, and it's blowing fairly hard at 8.5.7%. It's something to consider, and will have, I think, a big impact on how your summer is, particularly in the months of July and absolutely in August as things start to catch up, so to speak. The other big wind blowing at us is recession. Lots and lots of talk, more and more, it seems like each day. They're talking about a recession. So we have to consider how that wind is going to have an impact on our business. And finally, the interest rates on loans. The inflation drives up interest rates. Our Fed is trying to slow it down, so they're raising rates. So if you have business loans or going to need a business loan, in particular, you're going to be looking at a higher rate than just a few months ago. So my advice always, when you have these winds blowing at you, whatever they are, and they change, they come, they go, is make sure you do as much preparation. Think through these situations and what the impact will be on your business. The Weekly Business Hour is where Montgomery County and businesses throughout the world come together to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve your business, and to be part of conversations that make a real difference in your business. And we'll remind you as we start today's show that we are currently broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook. Just go to either one of those sources and find the Weekly Business Hour page and then click on it, and then you'll see a place to click so you can watch as well as listen to today's program. And also to remind you my email address, because I love to get emails, and we'll get into that in a little bit more later as we're going to the mailbag. For part of the show to answer a question sent in by one of our listeners. Email address is real simple. It's 1, that's the number 1, bestconsult@gmail.com. 1, bestconsult@gmail.com. Well, today I have a great guest. She's been on the show once before, asked her to come back because, again, we have those winds blowing against us, and what is the impact? And today we're going to talk about numbers, and I invited Randie Morton. She's the managing partner for Better Bookkeepers here in Montgomery County. She'll be joining us. She and I visited a little earlier in the month, and we're going to talk about how important the accurate numbers and your need to manage your business using those numbers in your monthly financials, etc. So Randie's conversation is coming up, and I encourage you, just sit back, grab a pad and pencil or your computer so you can take some notes, because Randie points out some important factors that some of you may not have been considering as you use your business numbers, your accounting numbers, your bookkeeping numbers, whatever you want to call it. So here's Randie Morton and a conversation that we had earlier this month. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the road today. We're out visiting Montgomery County businesses. And in this case, we've stopped by to see one of the Better Bookkeepers, if you will, Randie Morton, who heads up that firm, to talk about bookkeeping, accounting, maybe even a little bit of taxes, but talk about the general environment of business here in Montgomery County. Because, you know, Randie, that's one of the things that I think you have probably better than most a view of, because you have clients, customers throughout the area.
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's surprisingly, business is good in Montgomery County. It really is. You know, we took a little bit of a hit, but people seem to really start bouncing back in this area. Even, you know, you and I were talking offline a little bit about the staffing issues, and the work is there for sure. And we're seeing it in the bookkeeping. The profits are good.
You know, what's interesting to me, you mentioned like the visual I get on knowing how business is construction. I have a real estate background. I have a degree in real estate and finance. And in my early part of my career, that's what I did. So when you drive around the county, I mean, everywhere, Magnolia, you go all the way to the farther northern reaches of the county up in Willis and all that, and then go over towards 59. I mean, Splendora, there's construction everywhere and all kinds of construction.
Yep. In all shapes and sizes. And the people are coming. They say, build it and they will come. Well, they're here and it's building.
Well, I hope for the sake of some of these large residential developments with 1,000+ homes in them, that they do come, because these are massive developments. One of the things that I know is a concern, and I don't know what you see or hear from your clients, but, you know, infrastructure gets talked about a lot, particularly at a national level, but even here locally. Last year with the freeze and the problems with the electric utilities. But I also, here in Montgomery County, we have a new electrical generation plant going in place, which is to me exciting, because we're trying to meet the need before it's there. In other words, we're at least planning for that. Do you see that in other areas?
I was just going to comment on the area of infrastructure in general. You could see that the leaders of this county, they do a good job of trying to stay ahead of the problem, if you would. You know, traffic. I look right out my window at 45, and every day you can time it. You know what time it is just by the noise of the traffic. So I think we are very fortunate to live in the county that keeps an eye open and stays ahead of the game.
Yeah, I think I'm very impressed. I grew up in Houston, Harris County, and was involved in real estate there and some other places. But years ago, not so much recently, in my opinion, Harris County was ahead of the curve, if you will, planning and executing. I mean, you can plan yourself to death, right? But unless you make it happen, and it's a complex thing to build a road or put in utilities, and I get that. But I agree with you. The leadership here in Montgomery County and the county, the cities, whoever's involved, seems to be really focused on growth, of having the infrastructure in place to make the utilities, et cetera, available to people who want to develop the property, either commercially, residentially, or whatever. So I agree.
Like you said the construction is there. People are moving in. Well, that leads to the schools. The schools are then getting more and more students in them, and we need the roads for the buses to get the students to the classrooms. So it kind of all trickles, and they do a really good job of staying ahead. And you said the key word, planning. And we try to preach that pretty often in the bookkeeping world, or are you planning for it? Because this time of year, or really about 2 months ago, we were getting the phone calls screaming about how much taxes they owe from they get their return back from their CPA. We had their bookkeeping completed, get it to their CPA, and oh my goodness, I owe this in taxes. Well, did you plan? Did you plan with your CPA? You got to make sure that you do those quarterly planning with the CPA you're working with. So planning is key.
Excuse me, go ahead.
I was just saying planning is key.
Well, you make an excellent point, and you mentioned about planning with CPA. One of the struggles I had with clients and working with small business clients for all those years was there was very little, if any, planning done like you're talking about. People thought they went to the CPA or whatever to get their taxes done, and that was it. I was fortunate personally to grow up in a business environment, in a family business, where we met with the accounting firm every quarter just to talk about business issues, potential tax issues. It was not about preparing a return, direct work product. It was about kicking around where business was, where it needed to go, just an open discussion. And did the same thing with legal insurance. And it just makes a huge difference to a business, whether it's the panic that you mentioned, right, or keeping more money in your pocket. I mean, simply by planning. So I'm kind of a nut about encouraging people to spend a little bit of time on planning. So
and people don't realize that the tax return is the end result. You have to be planning all along the way, and bookkeeping needs to be in place all along the way, so that as soon as you see a little bit of a change, whether it's a increase in revenue or a decrease, increase in expense or a decrease, you need to adjust your plan accordingly. So if you wait on your bookkeeping, well, then your tax return is going to have a result that you may not be happy about.
Well, if you get that quote unquote cash call at the last minute to have to write a check, I find small business people tend to focus on the top line, on revenue, and don't really necessarily consider profits as much as they should, because to me, the game or the challenge is to keep as much of that dollar of revenue as you can at the bottom, go to the bottom, so to speak. And the best run businesses I've been blessed to work with and to know are those that really kind of put a real focus on that profit percentage, bringing that money down to the bottom line instead of just, I got to increase sales, or it's all about sales. And the environment is you make money whether sales are up or down or wherever they are. It's not rocket science. Is this what you find with clients?
All the time. And so many times we're referring out the CPAs in the area we work with, or even the CFO, the contract CFO advisors. Those, financial planning people are so important to have as part of your team for that exact reason. You may have a business that doesn't have a way to increase your revenue. Well, how can you get the best dollar out of that revenue you do have? How can you be responsible in your spending? Do you have too many staff, or do you need additional staff? All that is part of the conversation that as bookkeepers, we don't give advice. We try to just book what the activity is happening, but we see the planning. We see the people who are communicating with the right team members and having the right coaching, executive coaching in their business, and the difference it makes.
Yeah, it can make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
People think small business, they really don't need that type of assistance, but it just depends what you want to do with the business. I always tell them when I talk to them about consulting with them, I mean, if you're happy being what it is, and that's it, then, more power to it. It's your business. But if you want to grow and produce something, that leads me to a question that something we end up discussing on our show a lot, and that's the exit of the business, or exit, and trying to develop an exit, quote unquote, strategy. My advice to people, based on my personal experience plus training and other people I've read and heard from, is that you should plan your exit the day you open your business, because you'll make major decisions based on where you want to take your business. Again, it's planning, right? It doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just have some idea of where you want to go with the business, how long you want to stay in the business, best guess, right? And those can always be adjusted. What do you find with people in your experience as far as looking to the future of when they will either pass the business on or sell it or even close it down? I mean, that's some people's do that as a strategy for exiting.
And it is so important day one to have that plan. And if not, start working on the plan. And it may not be, you may not look at it as your exit plan, but it's your processes. Do you want to be an owner that is working deep in the weeds in the business? Or do you want to be working kind of at the bird's eye view level on the business? And that's all part of that plan, because you'll have the right people in place. A lot of times when we see it after the fact. Oh, I'm selling next month. Wait, you're what? So we're kind of the last people to know on our end, but the people who are most successful have their team in place because they put those policies into practice. They know, oh, I want to grow in this area, so I need to put more training and development into my staff or team members to get there.
You know, you touched on a word, success, or most successful businesses. And that's something I start define success with. Success for Randie Morton might not be success for Rick Schissler. And too often I find folks in business and other endeavors they may be involved. Well, success is winning, it's making money, whatever that means. I think success, though, for those that are truly successful is, did you get what you wanted out of the business? Are you getting what you want out of the business? And when you start talking to people, the personal purpose, which I'm a believer in, of going through that process that's offered by that book, people almost, they freeze up. They've never thought about, what is it that I want this business to look like when we grow up? You know, with the business, what is it I really want out of this business? Is it every day just unlocking the door and put my head down, and then every night locking the door and going home? And sadly to say, in many cases, that's what it's all about.
Oh, that you hit it spot on. I had this exact conversation twice in the last month, that for me, I just look at things differently. You know, that revenue goal is not a motivator for Randie Morton. I want to make sure that the quality is there. I want to make sure that people are treated right, and we do everything possible to do it the most efficient way. And it just so happens that we get blessed on the other side, because then it creates revenue. But, you know, at the end of the day, I want to be happy and satisfied that I did everything in my power to get things done the most efficient way possible, and things are done correctly. And
Well,
that's
and
motivator.
you know, and that's that's kind of the inner feeling you have. And in myself, my main goal is I love seeing other people be successful. And if I've contributed to that in a positive way, that's just even more wonderful. And when I was consulting on a regular basis, full time, the money, but we never charged rates that were equivalent to what we were doing, not in the business I was in. So I encourage people to, if you own a business, make sure you know why you're there and what you're trying to do, and include your family, especially when we have small business owners. Make sure they or you have a connection there. That's one of the most dangerous things I found, is when, say, spouses aren't on the same page of expectations, and then, you know, trouble comes, sales go down, whatever happens, a hurricane, who knows, a pandemic, and then all of a sudden you're squeezed, and you find out that your spouse is not on the same page as far as desire to be successful in this business. So let's take a break here for a moment. I've got a lot of other things I want to talk to you, because again, I think your firm, the business you're in, is such a wonderful resource of knowing what's going on in business. It's not just the black and white, the spreadsheets, the columnar pads in the old days, you know. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our first break of the day, and then we're going to come back and continue our conversation with Randie Morton. I forgot to give her a proper introduction. We'll start with that and let Randie share some of her background with you. But stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
A Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a nonprofit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas, dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100% by volunteers since 1999. Our main objective is to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome boxers that come to us from many sources, including local animal shelters, owner surrenders, and strays. For more information about Lone Star Boxer Rescue, visit our website at lsbr.org.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, back. We're visiting with Randie Morton. She is the individual who, chief cook and bottle washer, as my dad used to say, meaning you were in charge. You run the place, Better Bookkeepers. Randie, give us a little bit of background. I apologize. I didn't ask when we first started, kind of jumped right into that conversation and started a little bit of background about yourself and Better Bookkeepers.
Sure. Well, I don't mind at all, because, when you and I are together, we just seem to start chatting, and that's what we do. Yes, my name is Randie Morton. I've been with Better Bookkeepers 10 years. I just hit my 10th anniversary earlier this week, as a matter of fact. And when we started, we were 2 full-time people and 1 part-time person, and we worked from our homes. The staff meeting was around the kitchen table, and now we have 15 staff members. Better Bookkeepers, we're in office space here, Shenandoah. Most of our clients are in the Montgomery County area, but we do have a handful of clients in the Austin, Georgetown area. And so there's a lot of bookkeeping need out there in the area, and we're here to help, for sure.
Now, I understand, or at least I saw it, and I know how these things may drag, that you have a new title or designation. Is that correct?
I sure do. I just made managing partner with Better Bookkeepers. The owners are Melanie Bush and Barry Blanton. They've been working together. Better Bookkeepers is 12 years old come July 1st. Be 12 years old. I've been with them, like I said, 10 years, and I started as a senior bookkeeper and worked my way up through management. When Melanie was elected as the county treasurer, she left the business on the day-to-day and put it in my hands. And so I stepped up as president. I've been running the operations for 3 years now. We've seen the trouble all of us have seen in the last couple of years, and we just kind of pulled out of it. And I was very honored that they named me managing partner.
Well, congratulations. And I'm definitely, in the conversations you and I've had on the air, off the air, well-deserved, no doubt about it. Let's talk about bookkeeping for just a moment. Bookkeeping has really changed from my perspective as a business owner over the last 5-10 years. Now everything's electronic. What challenges is that presented to you as a bookkeeping service of, QuickBooks, whatever, it's all electronic?
It is electronic, and they do make it, their marketing department is beautiful because they make it look so easy. You just click of a button, zip, it's in there. But if you don't have someone with the accounting knowledge looking at the numbers and reconciling, whether that's an electronic customer service management that's handling your invoicing or even your payables, you have to have someone making sure that everything that you press the button and sync over to your software is balanced. Nothing was duplicated. Nothing was skipped. Make sure you're reconciling both two statements, that your bank statements, as well as these third-party softwares that are coming over. You have all your client information, all the invoices you sent out for the month, but you would be amazed at how many are duplicated, how many there was a little glitch in the sync. and things halfway came over. So that's where we step in and try to make sure all the boxes are checked so that everything is in order and coded properly.
Yeah, accurate information. The two things I look for from a bookkeeping, whether it be an accounting department in-house or an outside, is information I receive, the reporting, the reports, the financial statements, whatnot, are accurate and they're timely. Those two things are sort of my go-to items that when I use bookkeeping or have a business and I want those statements on a timely basis. Our family business, we got them, believe it or not, on the 5th or 6th of the month.
Wow, that's
And
fast.
yeah. And I mean, it was, and that was before electronics too, let me assure you. And the accuracy was amazing as the business grew and the number of statements grew, it just continued. But that all said, electronics, has that made your job as a bookkeeper, as a bookkeeping service easier, or is it a little more challenging?
I think it definitely helps. And with the, not just the speed, but also the efficiency, the electronics, yes, you could do it quicker, which gives you more time to put your eyes on it, to review that everything is in the right spot. A lot of times, if you spend so much time with that data entry and you don't have the electronics, as you say, to help get that data into the database quicker, then you don't have as much time to review it, to get the financial reports in the client's hand, in the business owner's hands. So yes, it has helped. And security, you got to make sure that you have the right security in place, because even though all these online tools are beautiful, you still want to make sure that you have security features in place so that that information doesn't end up in the wrong hands.
Electronic or digital record keeping, one of the things that I think that it does, I would think for your business, it does a lot of business, allows you to expand your market. So you're able to service clients. You mentioned the Austin area because you don't have to drive to a client's location, or they have to drive to yours and drop off records, and the ability to check in, plus the ability to teach the client, if that's part of the package, real time, as far as how the system works, the QuickBooks or whatever system they're using, a bookkeeping system.
One of the things we learned when things started shutting down a few years ago was how fortunate we were, because we already had it in place where we just picked up our stuff and went home, plugged it in, and it was as if we were sitting at the office. Everything that we had set up with our IT vendors was in a remote environment. So it was already securely backed up a few times a day. We already had the security credentials to get in and out of the system. We just wasn't allowed to sit in our office to do it. Back then, we were told to go home and work. And so our clients didn't miss a beat. We didn't miss payrolls. And, there were things we had to put on hold for some of the industries because they were all having to not report to work at all. So we were able to do it in a timely fashion and not miss on any of the deadlines for our clients, which was a really huge accomplishment for us. We were excited.
Well, I know someone like me, and I'm sure you have a number of clients, the fact that you were there, things worked, was a real blessing, because so many things were not necessarily working, so to speak, or were not like they were before. And to have something working, a major part of your business, which I happen to believe record keeping is, that was a real plus. So let me kind of go back to where we are today in Montgomery County for just a moment. Sure. We've already talked about the idea that, boy, it's growing, great leadership from our political leaders and whatnot, and making sure that infrastructure is in place. So promoting more growth, attracting more people, businesses to this area. What do you find, or what do you hear from your clients or see in their statements are some of the challenges they have right now? Anything in particular kind of catch your eye?
Number one is staff. is staffing and getting people to show up for the interviews. And there are some clients that'll throw incentives out there just to show up for the interview. And for someone like me who's old school, that it makes me cringe, because I'm like, really? We're giving them an incentive just to show up for the interview? That just doesn't seem right to me. But it's in every industry across the board. We see the growth. You see the construction, building the homes, the schools are increasing. So the people are here. So why are they not applying for the jobs that are open? That's the number one challenge that we have, that we see.
Now, you need to answer that question. Why? Where are the people? I get that question almost every day.
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know.
Well, I just saw the report nationally. They estimate that 390,000 people did go back to work last month, I guess, so new jobs. But the point is, I guess, I don't know what the answer is. Still work with some clients, and they all are, they feel like their hands are tied, or they just dumbfounded, quite frankly. People have been in business 20, 30 years or more. They've never seen this. They don't, they've tried every trick in the book. I have not heard anyone offering an incentive to show up for the interview. I can understand why, because the no-show rate is amazingly high. And it's really interesting, but we're the people. It's almost like we've had some alien invasion, body snatchers, and people are just gone, but nobody knows where.
And yet you see on the news that people are coming. They're coming here in Texas every day, but they're not applying for jobs, I guess. Or if they do turn in their resume and they schedule an interview, they simply don't show. And I cannot wrap my head around it.
Well, I personally knew we were in trouble in this area. Our business was in trouble when I had a good friend and colleague last month tell me that he's a well-known, well-respected nationally lawyer, and with a well-respected known firm nationally. And he's old school like you and me, and he actually hired a lawyer into the practice, and the guy didn't show up, didn't call him. And I said to myself, I said, lawyers know each other. I mean, it's a fairly close circle. This guy's he's gonna come in contact with. And my friend, it was sad. This had happened several weeks before, but he still was shaking his head. He could not, like you mentioned, get his arms around it. And
There's been a few times we wanted to call and check to see if they were okay, or if did they pass away between making the appointment and the time of the appointment, because it was just nothing. No phone call, no email, just a no-show. It's like, man, you just hope that they are still among us here. And they didn't leave.
When I heard the story about the lawyer, I knew it was really bad, because again, that guy, and in fact, my friend said, we'll cross paths somewhere, in this particular area of practice. There's no doubt about it. And he says, I don't know what the answers are in that area as far as helping. I think one of the things, though, I've seen some really good employers, businesses, is they have put more attention on maintaining the workforce they have. They've looked at every process of how they could do it with less labor, everything. I mean, some people have outsourced some things. In other words, taking the labor force and even shifting it around within the business of people. But it always gets back to treating your people well, responding to them, know what's on their mind, know what you can do to help them. And the better businesses, at least my experience, have always done that. But now they've even stepped up their efforts. And I'm not talking about the giveaways, the bonuses, or those kind of things.
No, just the culture, the day-to-day.
The whole thing. And so I've got X number of people, and I'm going to make this business run on X number of people and run well. But you do reach a point, if you lose people to, personal issues and things, that you still got to replace them. So any other issues that jump out at you that in this county that our small business people are facing that are particular challenges?
That one is so big that it's just kind of overshadowing anything else, really. That's just the main one for us. So there's nothing really that I can pinpoint.
Well, one of the other things I hear, now I agree with you. It's kind of like they always talk about what's going to win the next election. Well, everybody's talking about inflation. So, and that just sort of dominates anytime you go anywhere today. Price of gas, people just talking about it, or their experience or something they saw. And the staffing issue is exactly that way in a business discussion or whatnot. But the other thing I hear about Montgomery County is the cost of the real estate. Whether I'm leasing or trying to buy my own location. I've had several people in the last couple of years trying to buy to own their own location and so on and so forth, and just blown away quite literally with the cost to purchase the real estate or even to lease. Now, lease rates have pushed up. Supply is good, but still, real estate costs tend to be the second thing. If we get past the staffing that we talk about, is especially for those trying to buy and develop their own, office warehouse or whatever they might be trying to build.
And I would agree, they, even if it's not their own lease, and if that lease term is up for renewal, what does the new lease look like? Then they start talking about, well, where do I bring my business? Do we all move and work from home? But I'm glad you mentioned that, because yes, I guess that would be the next challenge is merchant services are going up. So do the clients pass the surcharge on to their customer, or do they absorb it and raise their rates some other way? You're hearing the fuel surcharge in the freight. They raised that a few years ago, 10 years ago, and it didn't come back down. They kept it in their price. So yes, inflation, I'm glad you mentioned those, because I was so focused on the staff part that yes, those are the next two, is your merchant services, those fees, because Visa and MasterCard, they announced their rates were going up in June. I don't know if they've effectively went up yet, since it's only the 3rd of June, but be on the lookout for it because they're going up.
Well, and also as a consumer, people need to recognize, since the Supreme Court's okayed it, is the merchants can advertise that they're going to charge you, the customer, 2% or 3% or some fee. And I noticed those are popping up in different things, little small fine print. The real estate thing, what's interesting to me as we kind of wind down here today, you can go across the county line into Harris County, and the real estate market in many areas such as shopping centers, office space, whatnot, is totally different. I mean, it's just, they got a lot of empty space, and it's very interesting, just that close by, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, totally different world. So we need to hang on whatever we need. I'm sorry, go ahead.
When you're in a community that's labeled the #1 in the world, or the nation, it makes it attractive. It makes it attractive to live here. And yes, just 20 minutes south, people don't want to be in that area.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Randie, I can't thank you enough as always. You've just got such a wonderful grasp on not only the bookkeeping, but aspects of business. You've got all that client base to kind of give you a lot of feedback, and you see it and working with them. If people want to contact you, have questions, or perhaps want to engage you, your services, what's the best way for them to do it?
Best way is to give us a call. Give us a call at the office. It's 832-299-6712. And we will get you connected with whoever you're looking to speak with, because, we try to share that referral network.
Well, again, and I personally know folks that use you, known your firm for a long time, and it's one of the best accounting firms or bookkeeping firms. One day you'll have to tell me what the difference in those accounting is and bookkeeping, but that's for another day. Randie, again, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Rick Schissler again. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. To me, the conversation about numbers and accounting and whatnot, I think it's so important, particularly today. And I really appreciate Randie Morton, managing partner of Better Bookkeepers, for helping us through that discussion. Again, you have questions, drop me an email. Real simple. Send it to onebestconsult@gmail.com. That's onebestconsult gmail.com. And I will respond to your question, and perhaps we'll even use it in our mailbag. Coming up in the second half of the show, we are going to go to the mailbag. We got a good question about employee retention. Lots of turnover with employees in many areas, many industries, and I think this is a very appropriate question to address, and I'll give you a quick answer, and we'll talk about that. And then finally, finish up my One Best Consult tip of the week, how a sound business strategy can help your business outperform your competition. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Schissler again, and thank you. Thank you for joining us on the Weekly Business Hour. We're going to go to the mailbag in just a second, but I want to remind you that a videocast podcast of today's program will be posted on YouTube, Facebook, on our page, The Weekly Business Hour. So if you missed something, you want to re-listen, or if you'd like to share it, really appreciate it. Share it with another business individual that could benefit from it, please do so. This will be posted in a couple days on the Weekly Business Hour page, YouTube, Facebook, etc. Well, in the mailbag, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. We're a little short of time today, but it's a wonderful question. I've been in discussion groups in the past week or two about this question, local businesses and roundtables talking about what to do with employee retention. Marge sent us an email. Basically, she says, we're located just outside a major metropolitan city. There's a tremendous competition for employees. Our business actually grew during the pandemic, and we want to add another line. It's a real challenge to find new employees, but I'm more concerned about keeping the ones I currently have. What can I do to boost my chances of keeping my existing employees? Again, a wonderful question, Marge, and thanks for bringing this up. I think there's several things you can do, and some of this came out of these roundtable discussions that I mentioned that we've had in the Montgomery County area over the last few weeks. The first one is money, right? Now, money never scores at the top of the list in these employee satisfaction surveys. It's usually historically been down around 5, 6, or 7. But the money that I'm talking about is the idea that you're currently paying what I'll call the prevailing wage. What is the prevailing wage in your area? I mean, folks are raising the quote-unquote minimum wage. Last time I checked, I thought it was about $15 because you could go to work at Amazon or some of the big companies that have locations around the United States. Starting wage $15. Read an article over the weekend that the city of Austin has raised their governmental minimum wage to $22. So be sure you're up, because that's part of the competition. $22 an hour in Austin, Texas. Very, very interesting. Yes, I have to work for the city, but $22 and you're paying me $10, $12, and I can get a job that perhaps pays me a lot more. You need to consider that. Inflation. This is another topic I've heard a lot of discussion about. Inflation is biting into our employees' paychecks. If you don't know that, just ask. It is absolutely there. I think a lot of it is mental, though the price at the grocery store and absolutely the price at the pump just knocks your socks off, right? Well, your employees are concerned. Some people are even afraid. There's sort of a fear of the unknown that's swept over this country, and particularly the people that are living paycheck to paycheck, which I heard a statistic recently, that's up to 80% of the working people are living paycheck to paycheck. So what do? Excellent suggestion I heard that a local, in this case, nonprofit did. They immediately, in the last couple of weeks, gave each of their 43 employees a $1,000 inflation bonus because they saw and understood the pain their people were having making ends meet. So they gave each employee a $1,000 inflation bonus. They also gave a raise across the board, 5%, even though this is not the time of the year they usually do it. I think the bonus idea of using bonuses, even if it's a bonus every paycheck, for making the adjustment, because at some point this is going to fall down. The other thing I like about the bonus, if your payroll system is such that a bonus is shown as a separate line, then every time the employee gets their check, they're reminded that you understood what they were going through to some degree, at least to the point that you're giving them extra money just because of what's going on with inflation. The other things, straight up, working conditions, the hours, the organization of the workplace, are things clean? These are all basics to attracting good employees. But take a look at them. Make sure you're doing the very best, doing what you can afford, because people want to work in an organized workplace, generally speaking. The best people, absolutely. And the last thing is attitude. This has always been there, the culture of your business. Encourage you to look that, make sure you're showing appreciation in small ways, speaking to people. I mean, there's all kinds of things. We've talked about this subject on the show, but make sure you're checking that box along with the working conditions. Most of you probably are pretty darn good at these areas, but make sure you're doing the very best you can. People want to work in a place. The money is important, but it is still not at the top of that list, I dare say. Now, if there's a huge gap, $5, $10 an hour, all bets are off. But for $1 or $2 or $3 where they work, attitude of where they work, that's what's important. So consider these things. Now I want to switch gears just for a moment on my One Best Consult tip of the week. How a sound business strategy can help your business outperform your competition. Competition is always there. It rarely, if ever, goes away. And one of the things I have always subscribed to, look and see what big companies are doing, Fortune 500 companies. What are they doing? And then try to distill some of these ideas, some of these business ideas that they have down to the small business level. And one of them is having a business strategy. I would dare suggest that a vast majority of small businesses don't understand or don't have a set business strategy. Now, they have an idea, right, on how to compete, and that fits right into a business strategy. But it's very, very important, I believe, to write it down and commit to it and make sure that your entire operation, all the people associated with you, including suppliers, are on the same page when it comes to your business strategy. You know, many companies look at it and say, well, my business strategy is the budget, and they get fixated on the budget. Well, I get that. I mean, you don't stay in business if you don't make money, and your budget is a great guide to making sure you stay on track for that. But the business strategy is a lot more, and that is an important thing to understand. It really boils down to two things, just two things in my opinion. It says, is what is you do in terms of value creation. You're creating value for your customers. I buy from you. I use your service because you have value to me, okay? What you sell helps my business, for an example, run better. The quality of your product is a lot better than your competition. You're creating your own value. And the other saying is creating value for your employees. And we kind of touched on that in the mailbag issue. You've got to create value for your employees. So think about those things. Develop your own business strategy. You have questions? Again, drop me an email, onebestconsult@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the show. And a reminder, come back next week. We have another great show planned. I want to thank Randie Morton for joining us this week. And look for a video podcast of the Weekly Business Hour on the website of the station, irlonestar.com, onebestconsult.com, or as I mentioned earlier, Facebook. And until next week, stay engaged and always keep your focus on what counts in your business.